We're going to take this program that uses two arrays of float variables, each with a length of 100, and each which are initialized with a random number, from displaying 100 randomly placed ellipses on screen, and make all of 100 of these ellipses bounce off the top and bottom edges and then the left and right edges. The random values that we've used to initialize all the variables in each of the arrays, we've used 5 as the lowest value and 495 as the highest value. Because these ellipses are 10 by 10 pixels, they have radii of 5, and so we want all of these ellipses to appear all the way on screen. So if you give them a random value between 5 and 495, that anywhere they appear, it won't be as though part of their edge is off the edge of the screen. So again, here we have all those 100 ellipses being displayed using this for loop and draw. So if I want to give them movement, the first thing I want to do is create another array of float variables. I'm going to call this one speed y because I'm going to use it as a speed variable to change the variables in the y array so the balls can move, the circles can move vertically. So I'm going to say speed y equals new float, and I need 100 new speed variables, the same as the number of y variables. So each of the y variables in this array can have its own speed variable as well. I also need to initialize those variables. So I'm going to say speed y square brackets I, so the first time through the loop it will be initializing speed 0, then speed 1, then speed 2, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to say random, and I want some of them bouncing up, and some of them are starting to move up, and some of them starting to move down, so they're not all moving in the same direction. So I'm going to go from -3 to 3. So this is, I'm actually going to come up here, all values from speed y0 through speed y99, get a value from -3 to 3. So each one of them is initialized one time. Then down here, inside the for loop, I'm going to add that speed y value to each of the speed y values to each of the y values. So each time draw loops through, each one of those y values will have its value changed by its speed value. So the for loop will, the first time through, will add speed 0 to y0, then speed 1 to y1, and so on and so forth, updating the speed each time. So that's yi equals yi plus speed yi. So now I've just updated it, so all of the ellipses move vertically. For the bouncing ball problem, as I'm using a speed variable, the speed needs to be added to the y variable all the time. That does not happen in the conditional. The reason is we're going to change the value of speed y. We're actually going to reverse it. So if it's a positive number, we're going to make it a negative. If it's a negative, we're going to make it a positive. So when the ball comes to the edge, the top or the bottom of the screen, it will reverse its speed, but the speed always has to be added on. So speed always adds to y location. So then I'm writing the conditional. So first I'm going to check the top edge of the screen. So if the y value gets to be less than the top of the screen, then I reverse the speed by multiplying it by -1. So speed yi equals -1 times speed yi. And then don't forget to close that conditional. And that's all inside the for loop. So this is just bouncing off the top. So if I run it now, just bouncing off the top. If I want to add in the bounce at the bottom, I'm going to have to check to see if the y variables get to be less than 0 or the y variables get to be greater than 500. And actually, if I want to bounce just on the edges of the circle, so the top edge of the circle and the bottom edge of the circle, I'm going to use 5 and 495 again. So it's not bouncing sort of what it's in the middle of the circle, but actually at that edge. So now that's the complete vertical bounce, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to need another array of variables for those x values. Just to be speedy, just to be quick about it, I'm going to Command-C, copy this, paste, change the y and speed y to x, and now I'm going to do the same thing down here to initialize a bunch of x variables. I want the same number, don't forget, initializing all of those inside this for loop again. And now I also want to, outside of the conditional, all of the time, update the x location using the speed x variable that variables that I've made. So xi equals xi plus speed xi. So that's the speed x is always added to x location. And then, not inside this conditional, because it doesn't matter if the circle is touching the top or the bottom of the screen, in a totally separate condition, yet still inside the for loop, so I can use my counter variable. I'm going to have basically the same conditional here, except I need to use x's and speed x. If you get an error, the two big things that I would check for is if you've accidentally nested the conditionals, or if you've forgotten to change one of these variables, because you, like me, probably is much tempted to just Command-C, copy that, paste it, and then say x, and then, super importantly, speed x. If you forget to change one of those, or if you nest this conditional, one of the conditionals inside the other, you will definitely get a bug. So close conditional for checking top and bottom. This is close conditional for checking left and right edge. So now all the balls will bounce off of each one of the 4 edges.